All right, so James, front man, namesake of the James Barker Band, joining us today, and it's been a busy 2 months, I think, since you've been here in Timmins. Rock on the River, of course.
It
CCMA's new EP. How's it been? This 2 months must be a whirlwind.
it's been a whirlwind. I feel like we were just there yesterday, so it's crazy to think that was already a couple months ago. But it's been good. We were kind of in the middle of a trip when we were up there, and I feel like we're still on it. So, but no, CCMA's was awesome. It was still kind of riding the high from that one, so still kind of got a headache as
Yeah.
well.
So I mean, obviously you're not new to the CCMA world. You've been nominated for a plethora of them in the past. This is the first win in both categories, if I'm not mistaken, though, right? If I went and so it was like what, six nominations, I think, for duo group, five for fan choice, and then you decide, we'll win them both in the same year. So
Yeah, it was pretty unbelievable. I mean, to win group or duo, I feel like not that it's overdue, but we've just really wanted to win that one for so long. So to finally get that, and then, I mean, fans' choice is kind of the holy grail. I feel like of all of the awards because it is the fans, and that's why we do this. To walk away with that one is pretty amazing. I mean, that's definitely like a nice little pat on the back. That's like, okay, you're doing something right. So without that one feels extra special.
well, yeah, I guess you can have all the streaming numbers and the people buying your albums. But when people have to go and actually vote. They're going out of their way to tell you that they like what you're doing, right? I mean, that must be a big part of why that's so special.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I mean, we do this for the fans. I mean, we have the fans to thank for all of this, and so to get that recognition is just it just feels really good. We appreciate it.
Yeah, right on. So with that, of course, they've got the EP on its way, October 20th, if I'm not mistaken, ahead of our time. And three songs are already released of the six, right? I feel like you really get a jump on the publicity on that one. Meet Your Mama, On the Water, and then the most recent one, Champagne. How did all this, come together between all the road on the road and the recording, and then having to release these all at the same time? I mean, how do you coordinate all of that?
It's pretty wild. So we've actually been sitting on these because we had kind of originally planned to release this in the spring. And then our summer was absolutely insane. Like we were all over the place starting early June. And we're like, you know what? We feel like we're not going to be able to do this justice and really give it the attention it deserves if we don't kind of wait until the chaos is all over. And so we're like, let's wait till after CCMAs and drop it then. And I'm just so excited to finally get it out there. I mean, we hate pushing back releases and stuff, but I really do feel like this is the best music James Barker Band has ever made, and we want to make sure we have the time to go out and promote it properly, and people have the time to actually listen to it. And we did play most of these songs live at the summer and gave everybody a taste of these songs, and we're really excited to get it out there. I feel like it's kind of it's just like the next evolution of James Barker Band, where it's still kind of what people can expect, but just a slightly different version of it. And so if people want to go pre-save it, you can pre-save it now. Like you said, comes out October the 20th.
Is there anything, so on the three songs that maybe people will be less familiar with, right, aside from the single, they know what they're getting there? Any surprises, anything different? Did you throw in, I don't know, an accordion somewhere at some point that people are going to go, what the heck was that, any, any,
I,
any
I will
surprises?
I will say that the title track "Ahead of Our Time" is the first real, I would say, like ballad we've ever released. The first real like kind of slow song. We've just never really done that. I mean, even "Meet Your Mama" wasn't a slow song; it was like a tempo version of a love song. And "Ahead of Our Time" is definitely like that more emotional version of that, which I don't think people have ever heard from us. So excited to see what people think of that.
Has that been a choice to kind of avoid the real traditional ballads, or is it just something that the inspiration wasn't there at any point?
Yeah, I guess it was more that. It's not like we're pretty our goal is always just to release the music we feel like is the best and we're most excited about. It's never been like, oh, it's got to be this type of song or that type of song. You know what I mean? It's just like whatever we feel like is just the best song, is the best song that suits James Barker Band. And this batch of song is just different, which maybe just shows a little bit of like growth and maturity as a group now that we've been together for so long. It's probably more that.
So with that, you said the title track. So obviously the EP's name is ahead of our time. Picking a title for an album, I imagine, is not an easy task, especially if you're all, got your own opinions on what it should be. How do you decide, okay, this track is going to also be the title of the album, or is it just kind of, do you have record people tell you what you're going to name it and call it a day, so it's all the pressure's off you?
We're actually super fortunate that we are not in a label situation and never really have been, where they've been like, you need to do this. They've been pretty good at being like, our job here is to amplify whatever you guys do. And we're pretty involved as a group. Like we jump on so many creative calls, just the four of us, to like nail it down and go to the label, be like, this is what we believe the song should be or the album should be. And ahead of our time was that, like, but it was not like, it was right down to the wire on what it was going to be called. We didn't know if we would call it that or not call it that, but really came to the consensus that we had actually landed on a different title, for the EP. And then, a week before we had to lock it in, we're like, no, this other title makes more sense. Um, and it just feels like so much cooler of a title and more like metaphorical to like how we feel as a group, where it's like, we've been doing things for so long, but we feel like we're finally just coming into our own musically and feel like for a little while we were ahead of ourselves. And that's why we landed on this, a little more depth to it, which we think is kind of country music in general. Things need to be a little, can't just be on the surface. They have to have a little bit of meaning to it.
That's the thing, right? The storytelling is what makes country music, right? I mean, yeah, you've got the fun party songs, but when you think about some of the most time honored, time tested, most lasting songs, they're the ones with the stories, right? They're the ones that people go back to and relate to.
Absolutely, and that's kind of what country music is supposed to be. That's what it's all about. It's all about like the experience of the common person, and you know what I mean. Like it's the struggles of the middle class person, and and that's what we want. We want to do that because that's what we are. That's what we come from. So
Now that festival season is basically wrapping up and you're heading into the cooler weather and stuff, is there going to be a tour specifically for this EP? Do you have any plans for that, or is there anything down the pipe?
I don't, we're still trying to figure it. I think I don't even want to say too much because I don't want to get in trouble. But we'll definitely be going out and doing a run of shows next year. I don't know how elaborate it'll be. Like we've got such a crazy schedule already booked for next summer, kind of going all over the world, and so trying to figure out when we can get an actual string of dates together. But there, I mean, I guess that to say there will be a tour. I just don't know if it's going to be called ahead of our time or not. So.
Right, but either way, I'm sure all 6 songs are going to make it into the set list, probably, right?
Oh, 100%. That's honestly the most exciting part is getting to play those songs after people have started to listen to them and play them the first time out. Like that's the best thing. Like this year, getting to play On the Water, when it had just come out is like, I don't know, this is the most exciting thing when you get to play those new ones.
So of that song, right? Obviously with Dalton Dover, who it's a great collaboration with the two of you. How is it different? Like, how do you determine what you're going to do on stage when you don't have that other voice? Like you see these collaborations, and then you got to go and do the song without that person. How do you decide which band member is going to sing it with you, or if you're going to do both parts? Like, how does that process work?
I mean, we're pretty fortunate, especially on this one, and we've never done like a male female duet, so it makes it a lot easier. I feel like it'd be more difficult to sing like the female version of like a Tim and Faith song or something like
Yeah,
that. Where this one we don't have to worry about that. But we do like when we were rehearsing this one, I was like, okay, I'll do this, and I was like, Taylor, do you want to sing this part? And Taylor does a little part of it, and we switch it up too. I mean, but On the Water was an easy one because it was actually wasn't written to do it. We were going to release that anyway, and then ended up getting Dalton on, after we already had it in the chamber.
yeah. Oh, cool. So I have a few fan questions that came through that I want to get out there. One of them is about festivals. Now that you're kind of wrapping those up, you've done obviously your fair share of them. Is there any? Obviously, we know it's very different than a tour. Your set list maybe has to be a little different. People that might not be there to see you, you're trying to win over. But on the behind the scenes side of things, is there any pet peeves that you have when you're at a festival location, or doing a festival set?
Like in terms of like the pet peeves, like just in general.
Yeah, I mean, it could be with the way with the way it's organized, with the fact that they're not all your fans that are there. Anything that you're thinking, oh man, if this wasn't there, it would be a million times better.
The only pet peeve I have is when the act that goes on before you plays too long. That is like a big sticking point for me because we started by playing like bars and fairs and festivals, and we were like the lowest of the low on the totem pole. You know what I mean? Like you like don't get rider, you don't get anything, and we were told do not go over your set time by like a minute. Like if you go over a minute, we're pulling the plug, and you guys will be up there with no hydro. And so I just feel like that was ingrained, like it's an etiquette thing. Where now when people play over their set, it drives me absolutely insane because if somebody's on before us, I mean, and these like people blow up, right? So like someone could be on before you, and in a year they'll be bigger than you. You just never know. That's how music works. But when somebody goes over, it's just a straight up like we don't care about the next person's time because then all of a sudden like we only have like 10 minutes to like get our crew guys on there to set up. Well, then our crew guys are rushing, which we're like, we these are our boys. We don't want them to be like stressed out about stuff. And then we have to cut our set because we don't want to do the same thing to the person after us.
Right.
And so that's like a real pet peeve. If somebody runs over, I will say something to them. It drives me nuts.
Speaking of people going on before you, has there ever been someone that's gone on and tried to cover one of your songs before you and you went, we were going to play that. Now we can't.
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, people have always been pretty good for that, on not doing stuff like that. It takes like a fairly specific type of person to go on and do something they know is kind of like crappy to the person after them.
Sure. I guess they wouldn't survive very long in this industry doing stuff like that, probably.
No, they wouldn't. And we're kind of an outspoken group, so I feel like they would know that if they did something like that, they would not get away without getting called out.
Right, right. On the topic of covers, though, text message that came in from Jasmine is wondering, you do, obviously covers, whether they're full blown or little snippets of that medley that you guys do in your show. What's your favorite song to cover? The one that's not yours on stage?
Oh man, I mean, we used to do actually no, it just got changed because the last show we did this summer, we did a punk rock version of Love Story by Taylor Swift. And honestly, like I thought the venue was going to collapse. It was like unbelievable. So that might be the new one. We also did Fat Lip by Sum 41, and that one like blew up. That one actually that one's better. That one's more fun for me to play as a guitar player anyway.
So with something like that, would you have countrified it or just straight up punk rock version?
Fat Lip we did identical to
Wow.
the one just because it's so like heavy and so cool. We're like we got to do. I mean, all of our inner teenagers was like, no, we want to play that like as if we're Sum 41.
Right. So yeah, with all the covers that you guys do, has there been any talk about recording any of them, releasing some, whether even if it's not as a single, just like streaming or something?
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times. I mean, we would love to do that. It is so hard because it's like, okay, well, if you have the option to do a cover or do an original, we almost always pick original. But I'm sure at some point it would be cool, just because we've kind of gotten known for our covers live, that it's going to make sense likely at some point to do like a cover like album, which I
Yeah,
think would be sick.
even just record the live versions of them and put those out. Then we don't have to go back into the studio and do it.
And there also is something like you do get like 10% like grace doing that stuff live because there's like an energy from the crowd where
Sure.
it almost feels a little bit better than if you did it in studio and it's super clean.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about going to a show sometimes, right? Sometimes if it's too perfect, it takes away from that feeling of being in a crowd, right?
Yeah, it doesn't feel real. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
the music's supposed to be real.
exactly. So Corey texted me and said, "What's your favorite song of yours, and why is it throwback?" Clearly, he likes throwback.
Throwback's a great song. I don't know if I'd say it's my favorite. I feel like my favorite is Over and Over Again. I feel
Yeah.
like that song to me, every time we play it, I'm like, damn, this song is a smash. I don't know what it is, but that song, I've like loved that song since day one. It just feels almost like a Beatles country song, like something with the melodies in that song, I feel like are like classic sounding.
Fair enough. Sean, this was on the Twitter that got liked by you guys. Actually, wants to know, where does most of your inspiration for writing come from? Do you have one kind of
I
go
think
to?
not really. I feel like it's just like normal, like life day to day stuff. I feel like you'll be like walking down the street and see something that sparks something, or someone says something in a conversation. They're like, oh, that feels like, a real thing. I feel like back when I first started writing, it was more about focusing on like a clever title and trying to nail that down and then nailing the vibe after. Whereas I feel like now I'll like see like, I don't know, like an emotion in a movie, like something happens that like really strikes someone. I'm like, oh, we should write a song that tries to capture that emotion and then start searching for titles that match up to that, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. Were you the kind of guy that carried a notepad and pen around to kind of write down ideas, or maybe on your phone nowadays?
On my phone, I have to admit, I am like I can barely write. I like am like the worst at writing. I don't know if it's like a mild form of dyslexia or something, but I can't like write with a pen or a pencil hardly, and so I keep everything in my phone. But I have like an insane list of titles. I feel like there's probably like 500 in
Wow.
my phone.
So what you're saying is, with the way that you write, you would have been a good doctor.
Yeah, yeah, true. I think that's what it is. I think that's probably my calling. If I could have made it out of high school, then I could have made another 8 years of med school.
Tom on Facebook wants to know, when did you know you could quit doing your day job? Like this could be the full thing, or if you ever actually had that thought, or you were just like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. We're just going to go in feet first, whether I swim, sink or swim.
I mean, it was definitely that where I was like, I'm doing this no matter what, even if I have to be broke. But I'm not fortunate to come from a family that has a bunch of money. I know like some people are, but so I graduated high school. I didn't go to college or anything, and I just started. I grew up on a farm. My family has always just been farmers, and so I just was working on the farm, and I would work at like whatever 90 hours a week for a month, and go to Nashville for a week and write songs, and it got to the point where I was playing like gigs, 3 or 4, 5 nights a week. And so I'd wake up at 5, farm, leave at like 5, go to a bar, play the bar, go straight back to the farm. And so I feel like there definitely was like a time in 2015 where we started selling out shows and stuff where it wasn't almost that like I didn't need to farm anymore because like we still needed money, but it was like I just don't have the time. I was like we're driving and flying all over the place, and I was like I can't do this anymore. So there was definitely like a realization. And I was working for this one farmer, and he didn't even tell me I was like fired. He just like slowly stopped calling me into work. But it was like, and we're still like super close. But you could tell it was his way of being like, you need to be doing this full time. You don't have time to do both these things.
So the decision was almost made for you.
Yeah, it honestly was, which I'm thankful because I feel like a lot of bosses would not have done that. A lot of bosses would have been like, you need to go, just go quit your gig or whatever. But he didn't do that. He just basically was like, let me spread my wings a little bit.
Perfect. And the final one was, have you ever, from Mark, it was a text as well to our text line. Have you ever seen anything that you've signed up for sale somewhere, eBay, a marketplace, on Facebook, anything like that? And if so, how did you react? If you haven't, how do you think you'd react?
We had this, I forget what it was. I think it was like a gold record or something that we had signed and given to a fan. And we saw it up on Marketplace. And I was like, that's cool. But I was also annoyed because I was like, you little turd, you freaking take our stuff and decide it and then go and try and make money off it. Like, where's my percentage? But that might just be my farmer like instincts. But also I'm like, whatever. I feel like I would have done that before too, so I can't be too mad. It's honestly better to see it on Marketplace than to see it in the thrift shop.
That's fair. Yeah. And at least you think, well, at least they think my stuff's valuable, you know? So obviously
Yeah.
there's some value to them from us. So I guess that's, silver lining in it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Cool. So yeah, so that's all the fan questions. So October 20th, ahead of our time, comes out. Obviously, it's going to be available everywhere. I'm pre-order through your website or save it, I guess, through there, all the links and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go even on like our Instagram, you can go and hit the little like link thing in our bio. It'll take you to whatever place you like to listen to music and go pre-save it. Do us a kindness and we are really excited to get it out there.
Perfect. Well, congratulations again on the two CCMAs, doing them both in the same year, Group Duo of the Year and Fan Choice Award. And I mean, the three singles you've released so far off the upcoming EP are fantastic. So I can't wait to hear the next three too. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, dude. We're excited to get it out there and appreciate you taking the time to chat today.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.